So, territory. What do you think of when I say that word? Often it pertains to the area in which animals live and claim to be theirs, or perhaps a geographical area defined by certain features. But as the key concept in this project, I had to decide what it meant to me. I was mainly inspired by Hebraken, who said in his 1998 text, The Structure of the Ordinary, that built form may suggest territory, but ongoing occupation fixes the extent of the claim. So whilst you might put 4 posts around a plot of land and call it yours, if someone, or something else wanted to habituate the middle, it becomes theirs too. Territory is a constant and ever-changing negotiation of spaces and places. We must seek to find where we fit into this hierarchy, using our own experience of beings to frame the way in which we do this. Shaped by our memories and upbringing in different cultures, we all react to certain environmental qualities, such as light and materials, differently. It is important to remember, however, that some qualities have certain pertinence to them, an intrinsic value which will guide the conversation of territorialization. To frame the ongoing investigations, I look closely at the idea of beings and their connotations, a key theme that emerged through my understanding of territories. Since this was an idea that I could observe and be a part of in my everyday life, I wanted to think of real-world examples as a way in. What is something that is tangible for use in the design process, but almost all beings can react to differently? Music! In many human cultures, it can be a certain theme that leads to specific images, or to many beings such as the genre that they can relate to. Many studies have been done into plants and animals preferring classical music to other types, likely meaning that they can connotate this genre to joy, relaxation, and peacefulness. What is so clever about music with no words is that it allows the being listening to completely use their own connotations and intrinsic reactions to create a narrative in their head. And one way to translate these into a shareable thing is through animation. So, with all this being said, welcome to Animating the Beings of Treherbert, or perhaps Animating the Being Treherbert. I found the creation of animatics to be a vital method of working in this project. It's allowed me to think of key moments throughout the design process through the occupation of spaces and environmental qualities. I can link each to a piece of music that I felt reflected the same atmosphere as the graphics to really amplify this. I could think of how each being would move and interact with each other, and the subsequent territories that they create. It allowed me to think of design decisions in motion, rather than a static picture which reflects how it would be in use and actuality. Animation is also about bringing things to life, and celebrating everything from wild adventures to everyday joy and emotions. Treherbert, where this project is based, is full of animated beings to be celebrated. Located in the south of Wales, about an hour from Cardiff, in the Rhondda Valley, this town has quite the history. Back when it was an industrial town full of collieries, the landscape was barren and still. There was no need for planting the trees that provide habitats or places to explore. This changed enormously with the function of the town, with plantations filling the bare topography with dynamic movement. This living and breathing being receives plenty of nurturing as it is a rainy place, typically with about half of every month being a downpour. The weather moves through the trough of the valley, where the majority of the urbanscape is. The urban territory is well defined from the rural area by the train line. It acts as a physical boundary splitting these territories. But what is so interesting about our site specifically is that it is on the wrong side of the track, as it were, being one of the only urban sites on this side. It acts as the urban being leaking into the territory of the woodlands, even if it has been re-territorialised by the forest over its period of inactivity. The site is still featured to the remnants of the brewery it once held, the dynamic brick wall being one of the most defining. While speaking to Treherbert as a being is important, it was important to speak to the beings of Treherbert too. On multiple occasions we, Unit 3, have had the chance to interact with the people at community involvement events run by us and Welcome to Our Woods, the main clients for this project. It was very helpful in shaping the project to hear the voices of the town and what values they held dearest. My heart was captured by the memories the people of Treherbert shared with us in the memory activity from Community Engagement 1. They told tales of their joy and contemplation, their home and their community. I tried to imagine what intrinsic qualities these memories would have in my first animatic, the memories of being. These memories are spread out all over the area, all over time, but how can there be a more tangible trigger for these memories and subsequent moments of pause? Could there be an environmental quality that becomes a stitching for the different territories in which these memories of being happened, physically and temporally? This is where the Flowers for Treherbert, Flowers for Time concept comes in. By planting wildflowers around the town and rural territories, they become a tangible part of the landscape to connotate memories of being to. Due to their planting seasons, they will return about the same time every year to animate the landscape, blooming, living, and then perishing when their season is over. They could become markers of people's birthdays, or mark the end of summer, as Chris Blake, a member of Welcome to Elwood, said he used to use the rosemary willow herb for as a child. By allowing people to create memories in the presence of flowers, they become intrinsically linked with the idea of taking a breath, taking a moment, something that works well within the brief. Playing in the background then was a snippet from the second animatic created, Flowers for Time. The brief asks us to design a hub that includes social, educational, and production spaces, with the main being intended for wood processing. Welcome to Our Woods is predicting to be wanting to process more than 800 tonnes of wood annually, so this needs to take up a fair amount of space. This was supplemented and further defined by the Landscape Monopoly Activities Investments activity that we ran at Community Engagement 1. They told us of functions they would like to see on site and how much they would value having each, the main ones being a workshop, a visitor centre, areas for teaching, cafe, and integrated greenery. The building is expected to come in phases to reflect the productive abilities of the people working on this and the economy they are growing. All of the above is explored deeper in the group report towards envisioning the brewery site. It was important to understand this through my narrative, so I set up some related goals and targets for the project. To achieve all of this, I had to consider how to approach the site. Given the direction travelled by the weather and the prevailing winds, I created a grid intended to reduce the effects of the weather but not stop them altogether. It was important to the idea of animation and the passing of time that the live conditions be felt and be manipulated, rather than creating a harsh boundary to stop this all. Following this grid meant that the buildings could not present directly to the approach from the urban territories, but it was important that it could still be read from this orientation so beings would know where to go when first entering sight. Townscape, a book by Gordon Cullen, provided some useful tactics to make use of, using deflection to guide beings down each side of the building and anticipation to lead round corners. A key concept noted by Cullen and supported by studies into territory by Hebraken and Duarte is the idea of the here and the over there. The there-ness defines the here-ness, so in other words, the context creates the edges of the site. It controls what techniques could and should be used, like defining where the breaks in the facade should be. This is something I studied closely through photography, modelling and drawing. Whilst on the topic of medias produced for presentation and exploration, I found myself using painting a lot for the exploration of moments created around the proposed being. During our field trip to Treherbert in November, we had to collect a souvenir of sorts, and I picked the charcoal from the bonfire we held. I then territorialised this being as an art material, but in turn it territorialised me. The same principle applies here. Although I am in control of the paint physically, it claims my hands as its own through dirtying them. It is almost as if, during the process of painting the moment, it spills outside its frame and is animated in the way the paint moves. But then when the tape is removed and my hands are washed, it becomes like a photograph, a snapshot of the moment to celebrate. With this in mind, welcome to the Intrinsic Hub. The guests enter through a widened section of the existing walls where everyone takes the first step together up a slight incline. A floral arrangement waves hello in the wind as you take in the elevation of the complex. Perhaps there's something going on in the plaza, luring you forwards as you ascend the stairs, ramp, or the existing slope. This indoor-outdoor space becomes central to the scheme. It can be territorialised in many different ways. One day it could be full of summer fete stalls, and the next an extension of the cafe. Entering through the visitor centre, there is an opportunity to collect a free map of the local area, as well as advertisement from local groups and businesses. The corridor leads you past the toilets and into the cafe, where there is a view of the wet garden out back and plenty of seating. The breeze block bays are visible, and many beings can be seen in the enriching environment through many framing windows. Exiting the cafe, the covered walkway takes you around the edges of the multi-use space. There is then the option to either keep going to the workshop or to go up the stairs or the lift to the first floor, where you can access the green roof, office, more toilets, and the exit shop that connects to the workshop. The workshop is a grand space where a buzz of productivity is held. Much like a tree with roots holding strong, the Intrinsic Hub takes an asymmetric construction in its levels. The columns are ground floor level, being thicker than the ones that mirror it on the first. This theme continues upwards as the roof becomes an even lighter canopy. The roof creates an opportunity for individualistic experiences as it reaches skyward separately over the aisle and the naves. The roof lights celebrate natural light and the wide expanse of the skies that helps to light up the space. The windows in this space are ever so important, framing key views near and far to celebrate the beautiful landscape in which it resides. The site is vibrant and animated at day and night, with many opportunities for the fauna of the woodlands to emerge on this more urban territory within the safety of their woodlands. I want to thank you for your time and consideration. I hope that you, as animated beings, can relate to the desire for everyday joy as developed through this project. Take a moment to pause today and just simply be. Celebrate and enjoy the vibrant world around you. Even in the flurry of everyday life, there should still be time for moments of pause.